The society presented in the animated series is a deeply troubled and complicated place where animals of all shapes and sizes attempt to live together under the rules of modern civilization. The absolute foundational law that keeps this entire world running is the strict separation between meat eaters, known as carnivores, and plant eaters, known as herbivores. On the surface, the city looks exactly like a human metropolis, complete with high schools, train systems, apartment blocks, and corporate offices. However, this entire setup is built on a dangerous lie, because you can't easily erase millions of years of animal evolution with a few government mandates. The legal system forces all meat eaters to survive entirely on vegetarian alternatives, like soy blocks, milk, and eggs, while making the consumption of real meat the absolute worst crime an individual can commit. To enforce this behaviour, the culture relies heavily on a system of deep psychological conditioning and public shaming, forcing large predators to constantly feel guilty about their natural strength, teeth and claws. This creates a fascinating structural contradiction within the universe, because the peace of the daytime world is entirely dependent on a lawless hidden area known as the black market. This market is a dark, sprawling district where predators can secretly buy and eat real meat away from the eyes of the law.
The government intentionally allows this illegal market to exist because it acts as a necessary safety valve, giving carnivores a place to release their dangerous biological urges so they can return to being polite, compliant citizens during the day. In this final season, this entire social architecture begins to shatter because the hidden anger and fear between the species have grown too massive for the black market to contain anymore. This failing social structure is pushed forward by a corrupt political infrastructure that relies on the myth of a saviour figure called the Sublime Beastar. This title is given to a single animal who possesses ultimate moral and physical authority, tasked with uniting the fractured species and projecting an image of perfect societal harmony to the public. In this final chapter of the story, the position is held by a horse named Yahya, whose leadership is anything but peaceful. Yahya operates like a cold-hearted dictator, using a vast network of secret spies, extreme physical violence, and state-sanctioned cruelty to keep the plant eaters safe and the meat eaters terrified. The narrative exposes the rotten core of this government by revealing that Yahya secretly uses the bodies of executed carnivore criminals as high-quality fertilizer to grow the expensive luxury vegetables that feed the wealthy herbivore elite.
This shocking revelation drives the entire plot out of the safe, isolated school setting of the early seasons and thrusts the characters into the grim reality of the adult underworld. In this larger world, the city is carved up into territories run by violent animal gangs based on species, such as the Lion Mafia, the Leopard Syndicate, and the Fox Gangs. As the government's hypocrisy becomes clear to the public, these gangs begin to fight openly for control, turning the entire city into a massive ideological battlefield where every animal is forced to confront the true, terrifying cost of their forced coexistence. The main character, caught in the centre of this looming civil war, is Legacy, a massive grey wolf whose entire life is defined by a severe identity crisis and a heavy burden of family trauma. Legacy is not a pure wolf. His mother was the child of a grey wolf and a Komodo dragon, meaning Legacy carries reptile genes hidden inside his mammalian body. This mixed heritage caused his mother to suffer a horrific physical deterioration as her skin began to sprout scaly patches, a transformation that destroyed her mind and led her to commit suicide when Legacy was just a young boy.
Because of this childhood tragedy, Legoshi lives in a constant state of intense self-loathing and fear. He views his own sharp teeth and powerful muscles not as normal parts of his body, but as dangerous weapons that are always on the verge of killing someone. His ultimate goal throughout the final season is to find a way to live a meaningful life without ever giving in to his predatory nature. He is deeply in love with a small white rabbit named Haru, and he wants to prove to himself, to her, and to society that a large predator can love a tiny prey animal without destroying her. To achieve this, Legoshi rejects the normal path of society and puts his body through extreme physical punishment. He leaves school, starves himself to learn how to ignore the smell of blood, and trains under outcast mentors who teach him how to fight using only his mind and spiritual energy. He even goes so far as to physically pull out his own sharp fangs with a pair of pliers, demonstrating a radical willingness to mutilate his own body just to guarantee that he will never pose a threat to the person he loves.
Standing in direct ideological opposition to Legoshi is a terrifying character named Melon, who serves as a dark mirror to the protagonist because they share a very similar biological origin. Melon is a hybrid animal born from a relationship between a male gazelle and a female leopard, an unnatural union that society considers an absolute abomination. Because of this mixture, Melon is a walking contradiction. He has the spots and claws of a lethal predator, but the gentle face and horns of a prey animal. This biological mismatch has completely broken his mind and left him with a severe psychological void. He suffers from a condition where he cannot taste anything at all, meaning he can never feel full, satisfied or comforted by food, whether he eats plants or meat. This permanent state of sensory deprivation drives him insane and fills him with a deep, murderous hatred for all of creation. Having spent his entire childhood being bullied, isolated, and treated like a monstrous freak by both carnivores and herbivores, Melon eventually murdered his own mother and embraced a life of complete nihilism. His ultimate objective is the total destruction of the social order that manufactured his misery. He becomes the ruthless leader of the lion gang in the black market and uses his power to spread chaos and violence across the city.
While Legoshi uses strict self-discipline and empathy to try and build a bridge between predator and prey, Melon uses clever manipulation and cruelty to tear everything down, aiming to turn the city into a giant slaughterhouse where all laws and moral codes are completely erased. The structural progression of the final season is carefully designed to scale the narrative upward, moving smoothly from quiet personal struggles into a massive political conspiracy. The pacing begins at a very slow, deliberate slice-of-life cadence after Legoshi drops out of school and moves into a cheap, run-down apartment building known as the Hidden Condo. The early episodes spend a significant amount of time detailing the mundane, realistic hardships of young adult life, showing Legoshi as he struggles to find a low-paying job delivering noodles, budget his money, and get along with his eccentric neighbours, who include a variety of marginalised animal species. For example, he befriends an older merino shit named Seven, who faces constant discrimination and microaggressions at her corporate job simply because she is a prey animal surrounded by larger carnivores. This slow pace is essential because it grounds the story in a recognisable reality, making the characters' daily emotional states feel authentic and relatable to the audience.
It also allows the show to introduce Legoshi's grandfather, Gosha, a kind Komodo dragon who chose a peaceful life of poverty over violence, showing Legoshi that it is possible to live a good life despite dangerous genetics. However, this quiet domestic routine is gradually destabilised as the narrative introduces small episodic conflicts that hint at a larger threat. The tension escalates dramatically when Yaya discovers Legoshi's incredible physical abilities and forces the young wolf into a dangerous deal to help him hunt down Melon. From this point on, the story transforms into a gritty, fast-paced detective noir, with each episode pulling Legoshi deeper into the corrupt underbelly of the city's corporate and criminal networks. The steady build-up of suspense eventually explodes into a massive climax during a citywide blackout, an event that cuts the power to the entire metropolis and physically blends the civilized streets with the lawless black market, creating a giant chaotic war zone where all the different plot lines and character grudges collide at once. This massive shift in the city's power dynamics is mirrored perfectly by the journey of Louis, the red deer who acts as the second protagonist of the story. Louis spent his early years trapped in a horrific system where he was raised as literal livestock, destined to be sold as premium meat to wealthy predators in the black market, before he was adopted by a powerful billionaire stag.
This traumatic childhood left him with a deep hatred for his own weakness as a herbivore and a secret admiration for the physical power of carnivores. In the earlier parts of the story, Louis tried to conquer his fear by becoming the leader of the Shishigumi, a dangerous gang of lions operating in the criminal underworld. By commanding these giant predators through sheer willpower and intelligence, Louis attempted to prove that a prey animal could stand at the top of the food chain. In this final season, Louis' storyline focuses on his return to the legitimate upper-class world, where his adoptive father expects him to marry a high society deer and take over a massive corporate empire. This creates a painful psychological conflict for Louis, who feels entirely alienated by the clean, fake manners of high society after experiencing the raw honesty of the criminal underworld. His goal becomes a desperate search for a way to use his immense wealth and public influence to shatter the systemic lies of the government, working in parallel with Legoshi to create a world where animals no longer have to live in fear of their own identities. The technical execution of this final season relies heavily on the animation team's incredible use of three-dimensional digital graphics to bring the animals' internal crises to life.
The visual direction completely rejects the flat, static style of traditional animation, choosing instead to use a dynamic virtual camera that moves through complex rooms and alleyways with absolute smoothness and precision. The spatial geometry of the scenes is carefully arranged to communicate the power imbalances between the characters without needing any dialogue. For example, during tense conversations, the camera will often pull back into a wide shot, positioning a small herbivore character in the exact center of a cold, empty frame to emphasize how small, lonely, and physically vulnerable they are against the world. Conversely, when a carnivore is fighting their inner hunger, the camera will slam into an ultra close-up of their face from a low angle, twisting the perspective to make their jaws and eyes look terrifyingly large and uncontrollable. The show also makes frequent use of split-screen panels that mimic the layout of a comic book page, allowing the viewer to watch the facial expressions of a predator and a prey animal at the exact same moment, highlighting the mutual fear and misunderstanding that exists between them. Color choice is another powerful visual tool used throughout the season. The normal city scenes